Welcome, warriors.
Yay!
Thanks for joining us again this week. We are joined today by a fabulous guest. Her name is Jen Salk. And before Abby hops into a quick little recap for you all, let me let you all know a little bit about who Jen is. Jen Salk is a mom, a wife, a dog mom, and a mental health advocate, an empty nester, and a fashion lover. She lives in South Florida with her husband and her dog. Her son's in college, and her daughter just graduated from University of Florida. She is so passionate about helping others and making connections. She chooses to share her story because she never knows who it may touch and help. All right, so Abby, let's hear about this chat.
Yeah, thank you, Jen, for hopping on here and sharing your story. I know for me, I heard a lot of myself in her story, and I really appreciated, what she shared. So, Jen starts off by sharing pretty much about how an abandonment wound from childhood she carried with her all the way through her adulthood, and it would manifest in ways like overthinking and overthinking about the future, ruminating about the past. And it wasn't until she went to therapy that she realized, like, oh, wow, I have some healing to do, especially around fears around abandonment and rejection. She shares how, through therapy, it's really helped her with being able to trust herself more and speak up more in different situations. And she shares a plethora of amazing strategies and coping tools and everything that I think everyone will really benefit from.
Yeah.
She shares how her relationship to anxiety has definitely changed, especially in the last few years, from anxiety being a dictator for her to anxiety being able to back off more, and for her to be able to really step into that discomfort and be okay with it. This was just such an amazing conversation. She shares so many great tools and anchors for really getting you into the present moment when anxiety wants you to spiral. And I know for me, I'm definitely taking some of those tools for my own practice as well.
Hard same warriors. We cannot wait for you to enjoy this conversation. Jen wants you to show up for yourself, and you're going to hear a lot of that, and along with some just amazing wisdom, as Abby said. So without further ado, here's the show. Welcome, warriors.
Yay.
We are joined today by a fabulous guest. Her name is Jen Salk. Jen, welcome to the show.
Oh, hi. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.
We're really excited. We always love connecting with guests on Instagram or YouTube or like anywhere in the internet ether. It's confusing to us as geriatric millennials, but also really awesome. Really, really awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah, it's awesome that we made this happen.
Yes. All right. So we like to just dive right in here at AWP. So Jen, share with us how anxiety shows up in your life.
Well, a lot of overthinking. Yeah, I'm like a huge overthinker. I could take one little tiny bit of information and overthink it and make it into like a big story and really, really believe it myself, and really make myself very anxious over what I'm telling myself. I'm really good at that. Yeah. And that overthinking leads to worry, but it's a lot of that what if thinking. And which is, it really, it's really, really icky. I'm a big worrier. I'm trying not to be, but worry, just, I think the inability to sometimes be present, be in the moment is because of my anxiety.
Yeah. Well, one, you're in good company, right? First of all, sometimes I think I haven't felt very anxious lately, right? Oh, woohoo. And then all of a sudden, the dumbest, smallest thing in the world happens and I can't stop overthinking it, right? And I'm like, oh, there you are. So I think we can very much relate to the overthinking and the
Mhm.
exhaustion around that. I'm super curious because you had mentioned that you have kids. So I
Yeah.
have some friends who, I've always had anxiety. It's like been my whole life, right? But I've had friends that like would notice anxiety, right? But it wasn't a thing they had. And then they had kids and then things shifted. So I'm super curious, like, were you an overthinker your entire life? Or did things change with kids or, yeah.
Yeah. So, just to tell you quickly, I had a lot of I had a lot of trauma growing up.
Yeah.
I lost my dad when I was 12, and my mom was sick at the same time.
Yeah.
So she's okay now, but it was like not a normal childhood.
No.
So yeah, I worried a lot. I always worried about my mom, like what would happen. So in the in between years before having kids, it was good. I didn't really overthink too much. I didn't really have too much to overthink. I went to college, I went to grad school, I had a great life. I met my husband. We have a wonderful life. We live in Florida, in South Florida. When I had kids, yeah, totally changes. My daughter's almost 22 and my son's 20. So, yeah, worrying about your little people, no matter what age they are.
Right.
Yeah, my son has Crohn's disease, which is autoimmune, like a GI. Yeah. And he's away at college. He's doing great, but it's a constant worry,
Yeah. And you probably had that with raising him, like making sure to be there and care for him and over all that, like thinking about his health. Right. And so even though he's not there with you now, I can imagine like it's still a stressor in your life because you love him.
Yeah. Well, we didn't even know he wasn't diagnosed till he was 16.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But he was sick before, it took like 6 months to get diagnosed. Yeah. So, I'm like definitely on top, like, not like a helicopter mom, but like, like definitely, close to my kids and, yeah.
My mom always said, she was like, you're never too old for me to stop worrying about you.
Right.
Like, it doesn't matter. Like I'm 40, my brother and sister in their early 50s. So I was like the special surprise, their special gift. She calls me the special gift, but I know it was probably a mix of surprise and gift with air quotes, 12 years after my sister. But she's just like, you're always my baby. Doesn't matter how old you are, moved out, married, own a home, career, whatever your deal is. I'm still going to be worried about you because that's like the role of parenting,
Yeah.
Seems.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I also like with my anxiety, and I think because of like what happened in childhood and because of like stuffing everything down really until like I actually found the right therapist. I was in therapy and I had many different therapists, but until I kind of found the right therapist, and really started to work on a lot of the healing that I had to do, I learned about this abandonment wound and all of the anxiety and the triggers, and it's all related. It's like the anxiety from the abandonment. So I'm so in tune with it now. But it is a huge source of anxiety when it gets triggered.
Yeah. Yeah.
So can you like describe? Yeah, I'm curious.
Yeah, I know it's so confusing.
What does that mean exactly?
Right, because it shows up really weird for me. And you can't control it. So I'm like,
right.
I can't control who I feel I'm going to be abandoned by because I really don't. It's really this like inner child in me is what it is that never really was able to heal from what was going on. So when I finally met my therapist and, started doing this healing work, like this inner child in me was like, had someone sitting with her doing a lot of this work. And I started not being able to like end the sessions and say goodbye because I was worried that she wasn't going to come back. And in between the sessions, it was really, really hard for me. And I was getting really anxious and I would make up all these stories that she was mad And she wasn't going to want to see me anymore. And if I emailed her, she's going to get mad. And it made sense to me. But you could tell when it wasn't me, like Jen doing it, when it was like this, like little girl and me kind of like needing this, needing the reassurance and like needing all this stuff that I really like needed.
Yeah.
And, it's very, the more like I want to share this because people don't talk about it, but it's really common. Because like when I do share it, people are like, what, it happened to me too. And it happened with my therapist too. And I was really scared of her abandoning me. And it took us a long time. Like, she's amazing. She's like amazing, amazing, amazing. Like no one I ever thought would be my therapist, but she's like amazing. I can't tell you enough. She never did anything for me to think that she was abandoning me. It was all me.
Right.
But she taught me how to have like a secure relationship, and how to trust in our relationship. And it took like a year really before we could work on anything else. Cause I was every session I'd have to like need the reassurance. I would want the reassurance.
Yes. Yes.
And I was so anxious about her leaving. Yeah. And it was really it was learning how to have that, like how to not be anxious with it.
Yeah. When you're sharing this, I mean, I hear it through the lens of attachment theory, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's like how I'm relating to it. And I am an anxious attachment, right? If I'm going to give myself a label. And I totally relate to that fear of abandonment and the way that your mind gets so sneaky in playing out those fears of like rejection and being abandoned. Like you don't even realize at first when it starts to creep up. You're like, oh, I like this person, right? Therapist, friend, partner, right? Whatever it is. And then the mind is like, oh, but you don't even realize it saying like, oh, they don't like you. They're going to reject you. They're going to be like, you don't even like realize it until you're starting to be like, oh my God, I need reassurance. Oh my God, are we safe? Are we safe? Are we safe?
Right.
And
right.
Yeah. So I love that your therapist really saw, what was happening and was like, wait a second, like we need to have a really solid relationship, like a secure relationship, like you said, before we can do any of the other work. Right? But I'm sure like by working on that security with her, it rippled into other areas of your life anyway.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, without me knowing, like she was so good at it, what she does, that we were doing other stuff without me really knowing. Cause I'm like, well, what are we working on? What are we talking about? Cause I'm like, I'm so type A. I'm like, I want to know like exactly like, right. Exactly.
Yeah.
I was like, give me homework. She's like, there's no homework. I was like, I want homework. And I see her twice a week. I mean, when we pay, no, insurance doesn't cover this. So,
it's a whole other conversation right there.
Yeah. We don't need to talk about that, but,
yeah.
I'm like, I'm never giving it up. Like
it's self-care,
but I'm a different person from I was. It's self-care. Yeah, I'm a different, like that I could sit here and talk about this is big.
It's huge, right?
Yeah, it's huge.
Like,
yeah.
I mean, Margot and I, for the longest time, like hid our anxiety and all the things that come with it, right? Because some people hear anxiety and they just think it's like being afraid and nervous in certain situations. Yeah. They don't understand how it like ripples into social anxiety and separation anxiety.
It's your whole life.
Rejection anxiety,
right.
abandonment, and,
right.
And it was basically Margot and I both realized like, oh, wait, we both have a lot of things in common when we started sharing about it, like you said earlier. Right. And that's why we did this podcast, is to just normalize it so that people don't feel so alone in their experiences, because so many people feel this way.
Right. No, I agree. I mean, you don't ever know what, I always say, like, you might see like a mom or a person or a dad or whoever in your community or someone at the vet or wherever you are, and they look cute and normal and they're dressed nice, and you never know like what's going on with them.
Totally.
You just never know.
I love that you brought in the outer shell, right? Because it is so we can't see what's going on with someone on the inside, not just their the insides of their physical body, but inside their mind, certainly. And we're all really good. We've been trained from a young age, many of us, to mask it, right? To hide it, to not share it, for fear of being rejected, for fear of being ostracized or othered by the community. And so who wants that? Who wants to be othered and ostracized? We need each other to survive. And so it just makes so much sense what you're saying. And I'm curious, like you were mentioning about the abandonment with your therapist, but like, how did this show up with other relationships? Like, I know you've been with your partner for a really long time,
So I've been married 23 years, and it doesn't.
So like, did you have that with him?
No.
Like, similar for me. It's so funny because I've been with my husband for 23 years and it was always secure. Everything's so secure about that. But then there are other relationships in my life where I'm like, don't leave me. Oh my God, you might leave me. And I freak out,
It's like, I think it's like, I care a lot about my relationships, and it's not, my husband's amazing. And I think it's just, we are so secure that I don't need to worry about it. He is like my safe person, but I've had some situations where I've had to be like very vulnerable. And I think it's in those relationships where, like with a friend or whatever, and, where you're like, you have to open yourself up or whatever it is. And, then you just are scared to like whatever, then that person's going to be, I always worry if I'm being a bother. I worry about being forgotten about. I worry about a lot of things.
He's speaking our language.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can make up really good stories, but I try to stop because I try to, we could talk about like, I have really good strategies that I do, and I'll share with them later because I've worked really hard. I'm working really, really hard on this, like really hard.
Yes, I love that. I love that you're like, I'm working in tune now.
I'm so in tune. And I would say 3 years ago, I didn't know what it was. I was like crying on my couch. Like it was during COVID that I started seeing her. It was like March of 2020 or February of 2020 or whatever it was. And we saw each other in person like a month, and then it was COVID. And then we've been virtual ever since.
Wow.
So I was like attached to this. Yeah, well, she's building an office, but we still haven't met. Like in person, we met, but we still haven't met in person.
Yeah.
And I even worry that like, I'm like, what if you don't like, I still ask now, 3 years later, I'm like, what if we meet in person and you're like, oh, I don't like Jen. She's like, she's like, where is this? Like, she wants to know where it's coming from. Because she's like, I'm like, I don't know. Well, what if you find people you like better? And you're like, because you only see a certain number of clients. She's not taking new clients. She's like, you have to, she's like, I don't even know what that's like to get rid of you. Because I'm always like, what if you want to get rid of me? And she's like, I don't even know what that means. I'm like, I don't either. I don't know where I came up with this. But she's like,
we don't always know the narrative. Where the narrative?
I know. I'm like, are you mad? Are you mad? I'm asking that. I'm like, maybe you're mad now. I'm like, are you mad now that I even asked that? And it's like a whole cycle. I know but we do like, if I did say something to offend her, like we talk, and she's taught me that like you could get mad at someone and talk about it and work through it, like if I have said something to offend her or something not meaningful, not like meaning, but like once I said something, I don't know, whatever, I don't even remember, but whatever.
Right. Yeah. Right. There's
I'll
room
take
for
ownership.
Repair. Like,
there's room for repair. And I guess maybe that didn't happen in the past with other people. And that's also what I fear. Like friendships have ended for no reason.
Yeah.
And, I remember those times and those hurt,
Right. And it reinforces the abandonment. It reinforces it's going to happen.
Right.
It's going to happen. Right.
And so that's what happens now when I'm like vulnerable, or when I have these other friendships. And, people though also don't probably want to hear, are you mad at me? Because the people on the other side.
Right.
If they're not anxious, I guess, but if you're with the right people, right? It has been a game changer, being with the right people that are secure, right? That understand who you are, what you're walking with, what you come to the table with, and it's taken, I don't know, I'll speak for me, it's taken years of practicing, discussing this kind of stuff with new people, especially. But then pretty quickly, it's like, okay, there seems to be like a level of expectation there, right? And it's mutual and it's respectful and it's boundaried, right? From both perspectives. But, I don't know. I think again, I'll just speak for me. When you reach a certain place or age in your life too, it's just like, I'm only going to offer space and give time to people that I feel like are worth investing in. Right. Yeah. And so like, there's maybe over time, there's a little bit more or a little bit less fear of abandonment and more like, hey, maybe this has run its course, or it's time to move on, or I've outgrown this relationship or this situation or this job, or, whatever it is, and trying to find the acceptance and the peace in that. And it's not easy. It is not easy.
Right. And if there is a relationship that the person knows what you're going through, I feel like they know me now, and or whoever, my friends, anyone knows me, and they could say like, hey, Jen, it really, like, I was upset when blah, blah, blah happened or something. And we talk about it and figure it out. Right. And that's it.
Right. Yeah, right. That's the part, like, I feel like for me has evolved too. Cause I so relate to everything you're saying, especially in like friendships and everything. I mean, there's still times like Margot and I have been friends for years, and I have the same fears. Like, what if Margot finds people she likes better than me? Right. Like, and, but in regards to like our friendship, I know that if I said something that upset her, Margot would tell me. Right. So as I've gotten older, I've realized like, be friends with people that'll speak up if something happens and are willing to do the repair work. Right. And so that's like been part of it too, is like my people now will have a communicate about it versus like, giving me like the cold shoulder and me overthinking what did I do wrong. Right. Yeah.
So let's dive into, and you've talked a lot about some of the ways that anxiety has shown up in terms of like your overthinking and the fear of abandonment and all of that kind of stuff, like mind games, all those fun, really fun things that we can sometimes experience as warriors. But like, talk to us more about how anxiety shows up in you physically. Do you notice any physiological symptoms, or like what kind of comes up in your body?
A lot, I would say, is like in my head, like focused on my head, like my eyes get blurry sometimes if I'm like get foggy, kind of like the blurriness. I'm a migraine sufferer, so I can attribute it maybe to some anxiety. I have trouble concentrating, I think, as I said. I clench my teeth, a big teeth, like clench my jaw, and I grind my teeth. I get stomach aches. What else? Yeah. It's a lot. I don't know.
Yeah, it is a lot.
So I don't know what else. Probably more. Sometimes I feel like, at first I used to feel like a weird thing in my throat. I don't really feel it anymore. But
interesting. Yeah. Maybe you're talking about your anxiety more and working on your stuff.
Yeah, I think it was like working on the talking, because I had all the feelings were stuck here.
Yeah.
And then once I started talking about the feelings, it was like everything started coming out.
Yeah.
And so like 47, whatever, however many years, I'm 50. So like whenever that was 3.5 years ago, like all those feelings just poured out.
Yeah.
What usually comes first? Like the anxiety in your body, the anxiety in your mind? Do you notice one quicker than the other and then start attributing it to anxiety?
It's fully in my mind. More. Yeah. It's in my mind. Yeah.
And I get that throat thing. Like, I know what you mean, because for so much of my life, I wouldn't communicate what I was thinking or feeling. Fear of rejection. Right. And so I would literally clench my teeth, like you're saying, and just shove it down. And I just started to realize, like, wow, I'm feeling a lot of tension in my throat. And once I started to actually speak more about my feelings and my experience and being more vulnerable, it felt like just lightness here. Right. It just like opened up. So
it's amazing. Right? The mind body connection. It's a real thing.
Yeah. No, it is. I mean, we'll talk about it in therapy, and she'll be like, when she notices me, whatever, I don't know, and she'll be like, where do you feel it? And I'm like, oh, like, I don't even know, somewhere in my mouth, something in my mouth, like my jaw hurts. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. All right. So let's dive into the fun stuff here. Let's talk a little bit about strategy. What are some of the ways that when anxiety pops up, whether it be, I mean, you can kind of share just freely about like the strategies that really serve no matter what kind of anxiety you're noticing crop up, or If there are like specific things that you do for this type of anxiety versus this type of anxiety, you know? So like, let's hear about some of the stuff in the toolbox.
Okay. Well, therapy, first of all, whatever. Okay. I think so for me, in between the sessions, I needed to have a trusted friend or family member to talk to. Like, not everyone needs to know your stuff, but I needed like a trusted friend because I couldn't hold it all in. Like, I needed to be able to have that like one friend or whoever that I could trust with this to talk to. I needed to do a lot of learn to do what like self-talk. And like when she first told me this, I was like, no, like not me, next. And then she's like, you know, she just kept saying it. She's like, it's gonna stick, you know, she's like, the more you tell yourself, she's like, it's gonna stick, you know, and it did. Like I bought a book. I'm like, okay, well, what do I like? What do I do? Like, and she was going away. This was like the first time she was going away. I'm like, okay, well, I'll read to keep myself busy. And so we got pink Post-it notes, and I wrote like, you know, like you're okay right now or whatever it was, like you're okay, and like this is scary, but you're okay, like you're, you know, whatever, like no one's mad at you, and like whatever I was thinking, I just told myself. And I would write them over and over, and I'd put them on the kitchen table, I put them in my closet, I put them on the bathroom mirror, I had them like took pictures and I put them on my phone screen. And I would just keep telling myself, like, I am okay. In this moment, I'm okay. Like, in this moment, I'm okay. I'm okay. Like, and I was like, someday I'm going to believe it. You know? And I did, you know, and I did. And I was like, you know what? I'm okay. I'm okay. Like right now in this moment, I am okay. And I learned, you know, I was, so like that helped me a lot with like bringing me back to the present. Yeah. You know, I did a lot of like movement, like even just going around my block, you know, I'd go and I would like put my phone away and I would just like look at the trees just to kind of like not keep my mind busy. You know, first I started for like a minute, like that was it, a minute, maybe go 5 houses or 10 houses or whatever. And just to say, like, think like, okay, Jen, you could do this. Like you could do a minute, like without thinking about, well, what if so-and-so doesn't call you back? Or what if blah, 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 or, you know, what if someone's mad at you, or what's going to happen? How are you going to make it till Monday without, you know, without talking to her? So, yeah, but movement helped, stretching, you know, things like that. Cause that just kind of keeps you like in the present, which was really hard for me.
Yes. Yes.
I could go on. I could share more.
Yeah, if you want. I mean, I love these anchors, right? Because like everything you're saying, these things like I'm okay, right? Yeah. Or this like using your body, like all of those anchor you into the present moment. And I just really just want to highlight that because the overthinking takes us anywhere but the present. Right? It's like projecting future stuff. It's ruminating on the past. And it's just like a head bouncing around. Right. And so I get these images of like all the things you're saying. It just like, whoosh, like pulls you into your body and your body's here right now. Right. And I love it. Yeah.
So it's always like coming back to the present. So even if I felt like I was feeling like panic come on, something, I would try to get myself back. And I made like a sensory little kit, you know, with something to feel, something to smell, you know, like something to look at. I made like a music list on my phone, just all that. And we also like worked on like the rainbow, like looking for things in the room, like 3 red and naming them, like the leave thing on the Zoom, you know, or, you know, and naming them, because that again brings you right back to the present moment. Yeah. Like 3 orange things and 3 yellow things and 3 green. And that's like really good when you're feeling anxious, because again, it's going to bring you right back to the present moment. And so
good. It's so I wrote down in this moment, I'm okay. Because you know, and Abby kind of touched on it too a moment ago, but like, that's just such a powerful affirmation for us, right? For all, that's something that I know all of our warriors can think about for themselves right now, right? It could be on a Post-it, it could be I love the Post-it because it can stick to things, right? Like your phone, your refrigerator, your,
Yeah.
your arm, whatever, like just have it with you. And it's like, in this moment, I'm okay. Like,
Yeah.
simple, but not easy. But the more we practice, the stronger that muscle becomes.
Right. I'm trying to find, I just was cleaning out my desk um, in my office, and I found all sorts of,
Yes.
can you see them? Like all sorts of
Yeah.
Post-it notes. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
warriors, we're
remember.
looking at a photo on Jen's phone, and it's just like a good, like 20 little Post-its on the
It
counter.
was like, be nice to yourself.
Mm.
This is scary and I'm okay. This is different. In this moment, I'm okay. I'm not that little girl anymore.
Oof, yes.
Yeah.
I guess
I love this is different. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really I'm going to keep that one because positive affirmations like changed my life too. Like positive self-talk was definitely something that I learned. I feel grateful that I learned it at a younger age, because I've been able to, that's like the one tool that I had before I knew that my experience was anxiety.
Yeah.
But I love that this is different. It's like, it's not labeling that it's good or bad or it's awful or the worst or it's amazing. It's just, this is different. Like this is new, this feeling, this experience. Like we can attribute that to so many things. And I just love sort of the newness of that without it being labeled.
Right. It's like accepting it that it's different. And then it's like, okay. Right. It's like, I love that too. Yeah.
So beautiful, Jen. Those are some amazing
I'm
strategies.
not giving that's credit to her.
Of course, we credit everything to the therapist. None of us come up with stuff on our own, right? We're being fed messages at home, at school, in books, with our friends and coworkers, and some of it comes from within, I'm sure. But you create what works for you based on all the little amazing nuggets and messages that you've received throughout your life, and try to make it a full suitcase full of stuff that you can pull out anytime you need to, give yourself a little bit of support. So good.
I even like got this like jar like at Michael's, and I was like, because I used to do this with my kids, like, and I was a teacher like before I had kids, so I was like all about like positive reinforcement. And I'm like, I need to like give myself some kind of reinforcement, something like. And so if I think I even at first I was like a whole day, if I could like go a whole day without, I think it was like, maybe I was like emailing her or texting her, something like asking her if she was mad or something. And I was like, if I can make it a whole day, I'm like, well, that's too hard. Then I like broke it down, and I was like, if I could do it like I did like 8 to 12 or 12 to 4 and 4. And I gave myself, I bought these like really pretty like beads or whatever, and I filled them up in a jar. And I showed her, like, I was like, oh yeah. And I did it. And I was like, kept filling it. And I was like, oh, now I just have to fill the jar, and it was like my goal, because I'm like really like driven. And I was like, I need to like fill this jar like ASAP. And so it just kind of made me like not reach out to her. And that really helped me actually, like something like that, like having that goal. And knowing I could do it. Like I knew I could do it. I knew I could do it. And building that trust.
I love that.
So good.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
It's like discomfort tolerance, right?
Yeah.
And
for me it was.
Yeah. Right. And you're showing you can tolerate it, and you have this goal to reward yourself. Because I'm sure the thoughts still were there. You just didn't act on the thoughts. And that part was helping you with being okay in the discomfort.
Trust me, I wrote the emails. I wrote them to myself.
Right.
I wrote them to myself. Right. I would write out. It was like a journal. It was almost like a journal.
Yeah. It's good. Yeah. That's good. All right. How would you describe your relationship to anxiety?
Boy. My relationship to anxiety. Meaning, what do you mean by that?
So it's so funny. Everyone takes this question in their own way. Just maybe if you could think of a word or a phrase that would describe how you feel about your anxiety. Like if you imagined your anxiety as like something separate from you, right? Its own person or its own entity or whatever, if you will. Like, what is your relationship to that thing like? Either in the past or in general or these days?
I guess like I'm not letting it like be a dictator anymore, really. Like I'm not letting it be like so in control anymore.
I like that.
I like that you use dictator. Like, yeah, because it really does. Like when you're not aware of that anxiety, it makes you do so many things to try to make it's like grasping to try to feel better. Right.
Manipulative.
Yeah. Right. It
Gaslighting.
manipulates you to do things. And you're like, oh, I don't want to do this, but I have to. So I
The
can
people
feel better.
pleasing. Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So I like that it's no longer a dictator. Like
right.
That, I mean, that's growth right there. Like I feel more like lightness and ease, like in my chest, just thinking about that. Right. Like that's evolution. Like, whew.
Yeah. Imagine taking down a dictator. Like who doesn't want that? That's
right.
Powerful. That is powerful. It's good.
Yeah.
All right. So if you could go back in time and speak to a younger version of yourself, what kind of advice would you offer?
To trust yourself. Yeah. Because I'm just learning to do that now.
Same.
Yeah.
It's a work in progress, right?
Yeah, it's a work in progress. And like, it's okay to share your feelings, like, trust in yourself and trust.
Yeah.
Yes.
Margot and okay.
Yeah.
It's going to be okay. Like, it's going to be okay. Like, you have a great life, like, it's going to be okay.
Yeah. It's so powerful. Like Margot and I talk a lot about like life skills that we wish we learned when we were kids. And one of them, like being able to trust yourself is a skill, right? We're not all born with that. Like, and when you start to really develop that trust within yourself, like there is a shift, right? There's like, and so I just love that because I think
it's hard. It's something really hard. And multiple professionals have told me, like, just trust yourself. Like, you just need to trust in yourself. Like, you have all the tools, everything. Like, you just have to trust yourself. I'm like, but what do you think? But what do you mean? Like, what do you think? And,
it's so honest. It's so honest, Jen. It almost, even when you just said it twice,
it's like my comfort zone. I mean, that's like what I'm comfortable with. Like, I'm being totally honest here.
It made my chest tighten up when you said, just trust yourself.
Yeah.
Just trust yourself. Because it just sounds like, oh, it's easy. Just hurry up and just try. It's like, well, if I could trust myself, don't you think I would have been doing that already? Like, it's one of those things where it sounds like placative. And even though it comes from a good place and that at the end of the day, it's good advice, that doesn't mean that it isn't something we need to actively work towards or actively practice every day. Like,
and tell us how, right? Like if you're telling us to trust ourselves, give us some tools on how to start doing that. If our whole lives we haven't trusted ourselves, like, like what's that one step next? Like, okay, let me practice.
Right.
All right. So final question before we get into some lightning round fun. What does being an anxiety warrior mean to you? When you hear this phrase, what comes up for you?
I guess like someone who keeps showing up, like not giving up and showing up consistently and for yourself, I think when people hear my story and they're like, you stuck, even like my therapist is like, no one, like no one would have stuck out what you went through, like with doing this healing work. Like, you're amazing. She's like, you're the strongest person I know. She's like, because this is really, really hard work. Like, this is harder than probably, like, I think going to medical school, probably, I mean, I'm sorry that my friends are doctors, but like, but it's really hard work and you keep showing up.
It's really hard work, but you keep showing up.
Yeah, keep showing up. I mean, and listen, it's not like this. I mean, no healing is like this. There's like, it's like, it's like
peaks and valleys.
Peaks and valleys. There's good days, bad days. And things are going to trigger you and, you're going to have to, it gets easier to recognize the triggers, when you learn, and then it's handling that. Right. And it's, so much you could do in therapy. It's what you do all on your own.
That's it. That's the showing up part, right? Like
Right.
showing up to therapy is like easy. I'm not saying it really is easy. I put that in quotes, everyone, right? Like showing up to therapy is hard enough.
Yeah, that's the easy part.
But
It's what you do on your own. It's taking that stuff and practicing it on your own.
Yes, and showing up for yourself on a like moment to moment basis.
Right.
Yeah. I love it.
That's good. Consistency is key, people. All right, Jen, thank you so much for sharing your heart with us and our warriors. We really appreciate you.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
It's time to party now. It's time to play a little bit. We're going to get into some lightning round fun, but first, here's the sting, okay? You got to like wait for the sting to know it's official. Are you ready for lightning round?
Am I? Yes.
Lightning. Okay. So here comes the lightning. We're each gonna, I know, right? I'm like this and this weather here today. Anyway.
It just started for you, huh?
Yep. Yeah.
Oh, really?
No, really.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah. It just heard like thunder or something.
Okay. Some kind of universe, God, source.
You are ready for lightning.
You saw lightning and I saw lightning. Like that was crazy.
Abby, we made that happen. We did that. I'm impressed. That's a first. That is a first. Okay. Yeah. So we're just going to go back and forth and ask you a handful of fun, get to know you type questions. Anxiety can be kind of weighty. We like to end on a high note with some play, some silliness. You do not have to answer at lightning speed. Take a pause, take a breath. It's going to be okay. In this moment, you are okay, Jen.
Right. Okay.
All right. So, Abby, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first.
Okay.
So, off the bat, what is your go-to like song that just like brightens your mood?
It's a good question. But these aren't like happy songs. Like right now I'm not listening to like happy songs. So it's like,
but it doesn't make you feel good.
Yeah. I don't know. I love like Rachel Platten.
Yes.
So right now I'm like listening to like Rachel Platten's new song, Girls.
Oh, I haven't even heard that one. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I love Rachel Platten, so I'll make sure to check that out. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to say...
like embarrassed to say that. Okay.
Oh, that's perfect because I'm going to stay in this lane a little bit.
Okay.
And now that you said embarrassed, I'm going to like add that layer to this question. What is a song that you embarrassingly know every word to and could just like crush at karaoke? But maybe it's a little embarrassing to admit that you know every word to this song.
Probably something from Greece.
Yes. Which one? All of them?
Like,
all of them.
Summer Lovin'. I don't know.
Okay. What is some like interesting hobby that you like doing? Something that, you just do for fun. Nothing work related at all. I feel like sometimes work stuff always climbs into our, it's like, oh, I really like doing this thing, but it's actually for work. So what is like just something that brings you joy that's like a hobby?
I love to read. I mean, I used to read a book a week when my anxiety is on the low end, like lowered. But as I have more anxiety, it's definitely harder to read.
Yes. I sometimes get anxiety about reading. Like I enjoy reading so much that like if I don't get a certain amount of reading done in a day or a week, I feel anxious about reading. But it's like one of my daily hobbies.
Don't you love when we're anxious about the stuff that's supposed to bring us joy?
We love
right. Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Do you have a favorite vacation spot and why is it your favorite?
Well, we just went to, for my husband and I just both turned 50. And we went to London and Paris and, I hadn't been there since I was 21. So Paris was amazing. I love it there. And I love Israel. I've been to Israel 3 times. So awesome. Love to travel.
Yeah. Awesome. Oh, I love that. Okay. Final question. So you live in Florida. So what do you think? I mean, the locals might not like this, but what is like one of the best beaches in Florida that people should go to?
So I live in South Florida. Like I live probably an hour north of Miami. So like the beaches aren't like crazy nice over here. I think they're much nicer on the West Coast, like near Naples over there, because it's the Gulf. It's a lot like calmer and nice as
Yeah.
But there's a lot of nice areas. I unfortunately haven't seen a lot of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even though I've
moved,
lived here for 22 years.
well, I have family in Florida, right?
Okay.
But I've moved to Colorado, which is landlocked, and it is
Mhm.
like
Right.
awful. I miss beaches. And so my cousins who live in Florida send me pictures when they're on the beach all the time, and I'm always so super envious. But they're not near Naples, so maybe I'll make the trip to go to the beaches there, because if you're going to make a trip for a beach, you want a nice beach.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, anywhere like on like Marco Island, Naples, I think it's nice over there.
All right. Well, thank you, Jen, for playing with us for a little bit.
Oh, thank you. That was fun.
Before
That
we
gave me more anxiety.
Some people do get anxiety from it.
It's true. When you
The
can't
off the cuff
prepare.
questions. Yeah.
So we like to ask all of our guests to share a win of the week, something big or small that's happened to you. It doesn't have to be this week. It could just be something that happened recently that felt like a win.
Okay. That I could do. So my daughter, so she's not listening, she just graduated from college a few weeks ago. And anyways, we just went to a doctor this morning because she's recently had like 2 reactions after eating like 2 different things. And one, she was actually just in Europe, like traveling. And one thing happened when she was in Italy. And so we went to the doctor this morning, and I just found out that it was like an anaphylactic reaction.
Oh no.
That the doctor kind of scared me. Yeah, she's like, you should have called 911. So I handled it well. I thought I would have been a way more of a wreck.
Sure.
But we're figuring this out. We already have our EpiPens. But yeah, so I'm kind of happy with how I handled it.
Yes.
Awesome.
That's always a win. When we're like,
Yeah.
okay, wait.
Yeah.
I didn't like freak out, like, or I
think because
lightly
she was
freaked
there.
out.
I think because like when your kids are there, like you have to show up for your kids.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, our reactivity can be a beast. So the fact that, and I love that you're looking at that as a win, because it is, right?
Oh
Those
God,
little
yeah.
wins, right? It's not even little, it's a big win.
Yeah.
Not reacting in the way that maybe you once would have, or maybe that you felt deep inside, but like, you knew like, okay, I need to show up right now to be mother to my child who's dealing with this new thing that's could be scary, but now you've got a plan, right? And it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And you can't go back on the past. So it's like the past is over. She's okay.
Yeah.
That's right.
Right.
And now we just have to move forward, right?
Right. You can't overthink the past because she's okay. And now it's totally, I feel it.
Oof, that's a good one. That is a really good place to end. All right, Jen. So tell our listeners how they can connect with you.
Sure. Follow me on Instagram, Jen Salk, JenSalk. I have a website. I don't really do too much on there, but like I probably will put this on there. Like when I go on I've been on like a podcast a week, so you could follow me. I have different things I share on different podcasts.
Awesome. Is it jensalk.com? Or?
It is, yes.
Okay.
Jensalk.com.
Yeah. Awesome.
That's all.
Thank you so much for being a guest on our show. It was a pleasure.
Yes.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me. I'm glad that I was able to share that.
Yes. We're very glad to. We're very glad. All right. Bye.
Bye.
Whew, warriors.
Yeah.
What an interview.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jen is like, she said a lot of the same things that you and I say to each other all the time.
Yeah.
For years.
Totally. I was so there, especially in the overthinking and the reassurance. Like I was like, you are speaking my life.
Yes. It feels like that a lot with our guests. It really does. Like there are so many big or little notes of ourselves and everyone, every warrior that we have the honor to talk to. And Jen was, of course, no exception.
Yeah.
I think my first takeaway, I just love that Jen is very type A, right? She was like talking to her therapist about getting homework and like trying to, be a good student. And I could very much appreciate that honesty. But I really thought it was awesome that even though she was told like, hey, you need to work on some positive self-talk, that she was just like, nope, that's not me, next. But that she was able to open herself up to it. And now it's like a big part of her practice. And it seems like it's really benefited her. I loved hearing about the post-it affirmations and just like all of her coping strategies. I think that was my favorite part of our conversation, just listening to her talk about making that sensory kit. I love that.
Yes.
So many grounding tools and techniques.
Yes. That was actually, I mean, that was one of my takeaways was, I love hearing everyone's different coping techniques. And oftentimes when people share stuff, I'm like, oh yeah, I do that too. Right. But when she shared the rainbow, like I had heard like, you know, like naming 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, you know, I've heard that. But I had never heard the rainbow, like find 3 reds, find 3 oranges, find 3. And that really like, it really resonated when she was speaking about that, you know? And so I loved all of her takeaways as, you know, all our listeners know Margot and I are super, super passionate about affirmations and like anchoring statements into the present moment or like, you know, reminding us how strong and powerful we are. But the rainbow piece, I've actually never heard anyone speak about. And I feel like that would be something super helpful because it's so easy to do anywhere. Right. Yep. And so that's something that I feel like the next time I feel like I'm overthinking, I feel like I'm not present, like that is something I want to try out and see how it feels because you have to think about it. You have to like think about like, okay, Roy G. Biv, right? You have to like think about the colors of the rainbow and then you have to really put your attention to finding the 3 ones. Like, I feel like that would really help my brain with structure and it would take a long enough time that like it might get me back in the present. So I really appreciate
It's like a full activity.
Yeah.
Right. It isn't just like, oh, feel the bottoms of your feet, which I do all the time. And it actually serves me really well. Right. But like it only takes a moment. And then guess what? A moment later, sometimes I'm back in my head or I'm out of my body again. Right. If all of a sudden I can't maybe stand still, feel the bottoms of my feet for 10 minutes, I can only do it for 20 seconds. And maybe I needed longer. Right. So yes, I agree. I think that's a tangible one that a lot of warriors can hopefully go ahead and toss into their tool chest as well. I think my final takeaway, you know, I related to a lot of Jen's physical symptoms. I grew up with a lot of painful head pain, just horrible headaches. I don't know that I would have ever called them migraines, and I certainly was never like diagnosed with anything in terms of, you know, you are someone that suffers from migraines, but I definitely struggled with head pain as a child, and it's followed me through adulthood. I've been able to nip it in the bud quickly enough these days. Like I notice when a headache's coming, and so there are certain things I can do to keep it at bay, or when I get the headache to tamp it down quickly. But I felt really seen in that moment, with just sort of talking about the clenching of her jaw and the grinding of the teeth and like feeling that like, and that thing in her throat without being able to say what it is. And I know you said that you related as well, just like feeling like I can't share what I'm going through, what I'm experiencing outwardly to anyone. And so, that was kind of more of an aside than a takeaway or just like something I wanted to reflect on. But my other big takeaway was just like how easy it can be to tell someone to just go ahead and trust themselves.
Oh God, yeah.
But putting that into practice is a whole other thing.
Yes.
And I just appreciated Jen's kind of honesty about like how that's a journey for her.
Right. Right. And for anyone listening, like, don't just tell someone to trust themselves. Like, give them a step. Right. Because for me, like, I definitely heard that too. And it even to this day, like, you know, how have I practiced trusting my, you know, and it's like speaking up, right, in safe situations, but speaking my truth in safe situations and seeing that everything's okay. Right. It's like these teeny little things that help me trust myself. But like, did someone tell me how to do it? No, I had to like start to like figure it out. Maybe someone did, and I don't remember, and I'm not crediting them, and I'm sorry. But I feel like there was, you know.
No, I feel you.
Yeah. I feel like my final takeaway is just really how honest she was with the abandonment wound. And like for me, I use attachment theory and I use anxious attachment, right? So for with her and her language, the way I heard it was through the lens of my experience with anxious attachment, right? And I just really, really, really value and appreciate how she shared about like how, you know, you can just be interacting with someone and everything is totally fine. And you leave that conversation and you're like, oh my God, they hate me. Right.
Yeah.
Or, oh, they don't really want to be my friend, or, oh, they're going to leave me. Right. But the subtlety of it in the mind is the part that like is so hard to really articulate, right? Like we can say how it shows up. It shows up with us like calling or texting a lot. It shows up with us being like, hey, do you really want to hang out? Do you really mean it? You know, hey, are you really mad at me? Or are you not mad at me? Like I saw you do that thing, right? And so I just really appreciated her articulating the experience because, you know, especially in my younger years, I feel like I lived like that a lot, right? And my anxiety would have me try to like manipulate or change situations so I could feel safe with other people without me realizing that the deeper level of it was this fear of rejection, this fear of abandonment. And so like, you know, my takeaway is just, it's just appreciation of the conversation, because I do really feel like there's not enough conversation around like how we navigate a world when we're so afraid of being abandoned, when we're so afraid of being rejected, right? And how, what our mind does to make us try to feel safe in those situations and secure, but there's actually better tools out there than like what our anxiety is telling us to do.
Well said. Yeah, that was that whole section of our interview was probably the most powerful. I agree. Just hearing that I don't know, that freaking realness, right? Just the honesty about what it feels. I think something else and something you just said reminded me of it too. And I think we've talked about this with at least one or two of our other guests, just like how hard the fear of rejection is.
Yeah.
Right. Just like that piece of abandonment for anxious attachment people, whatever the situation. But like, I think that even people that aren't anxious have experienced like some rejection in some form. And it isn't talked about enough how hard and scary and painful that is.
Yeah. The fear
And
of
so,
it or
the fear
being
of it.
rejected, the devastation, right? Like it's
The
like,
grief.
yeah.
Totally.
So, yeah.
Oh, good job, Jen. Thank you for all of that. Very, very helpful and valuable. All of those very helpful and valuable life lessons for us, for all of our warrior listeners. Thank you, warriors, for being with us again this week. If you'd like to connect with us for any reason, you can join our Instagram fam. We're at Anxiety Warriors Podcast, or you can feel free to shoot us an email at anxietywarriorspodcast@gmail.com. Shout out those wins of the week, share topic ideas with us, or if you think you'd be a great fit as a guest on our show, let us know. Let us get you on the calendar, help you tell your anxiety journey to our warrior fam. Please take a couple of seconds and smash that 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, or wherever you're tuning into this right now. Like and subscribe to that YouTube channel. And we are selling some amazing merch at our Threadless shop. Hop on into our show notes and buy yourself something fun, or something fun for the warriors in your life.
Yes. Thank you all so much for going on this journey with us. We are so grateful that we get to do this with you.
Till next time.